I'm taking a walk in the sunshine. Beautiful day. What have you been up to? So there has been an update for a little while because I've been engaged in the website. Now the new website is set up. So on the website you can find the songs, the videos, the lyrics, the inspiration. I wrote some essays or articles. Whatever you like to say, essays sounds a bit too formal, doesn't it? You know, some articles on the inspiration behind the songs. And then there's another site too for those interested in spiritual life, self-realization. There's a site with just links to some cool sites that I think are useful no matter where someone is in the world, whether they got people around them or not. They could be in the middle of the forest, middle of the jungle like me. Not really in the middle of the jungle, you know what I mean? You know, you've got those websites, you can still follow spiritual life. And so if you got websites that you think would be good for that too, please send them on over. Hare Krishna. So there's the valley. Let's see. I'm climbing up these hills. Look at these guys. They're like an army of ants. Leaves. Just go in, taking them back to their home. There's a whole trail of them. Goes right up this hill. I don't know if you can see by there. Go all the way up there. I just went up there. And they go right up, following their path. It's very cool. Following the path that is meant for them, that is suitable for them, so they can go on home. Just like the ants, we've all got our path that we need to take. Sometimes people think that spiritual life, you know, they have the conception, the Western religious conception of just believe something artificially, that things shouldn't be tested, that things should just be taken blindly, on blind faith. And it often leads, when that happens, and it happens, let's not deny it, in all sorts of spiritual groups, and religious groups and like that. When that happens, it takes people away from the essence of those paths, of why they're there. In the Vedic texts, knowledge is known as jnana, but then it says that better than that, what we should acquire is vijnana, which is realized knowledge. Knowledge that we know, that we can feel, that we experience. So in a sense, experiential knowledge, you know. But a bit different from empiricism in the sense that it's not looking outside with our senses, you know, it's looking inside in our hearts. And certainly some things need to be believed in the beginning. Just like I gave the example, the chemistry teacher, you know, you believe that chemistry teacher, you believe that they're gonna do that if you do the experiment that they give you, you believe, okay, he's telling me that if I mix this chemical, it's gonna puff up in smoke and leave me with some other element. At first you believe that because you would trust that the authority of that person, that they know what they're talking about, that they got their chemistry degree or whatever. And so then you follow that experiment and then you get that experiential knowledge. You can see, you mix them yourselves and you see. And so similarly, in spiritual life, sure, in the beginning there's some things that we take just as a tentative hypothesis. So he goes off on his horse up there. It's pretty cool. So I had a bit of a conversation in Spanish. Kind of, my Spanish is really poor. But I said a few words and he understood, so Haribol. What was I saying? I was talking about knowledge, right? I was talking about the experience and beauty of spiritual life, I'm sure. So yeah, so in spiritual life, similarly, yeah, sure, there's some things we take, but it shouldn't remain a belief, or things that are held as beliefs. We should realize in ourselves that they're not realized knowledge, and okay, this is belief. but there's some things that we should realize. At its essence, real spiritual life is about emotions. It's an emotional experience. And that is not artificial, even though, sometimes people are scared to express their emotions. But at our core, what we really like to do naturally is to express ourselves, be ourselves, and be comfortable with our emotions, our range of emotions. Sometimes we're up, sometimes we're down. That's natural. That is a natural part of life. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, he says, happiness and distress, they come and go like the winter and summer seasons. So he's saying, that's natural. These things are going to come. Sometimes you're going to be top of the world. You're going to be in the jungle in Mexico all happy. And then sometimes you're going to be like bottom of the world. Those bugs are going to be biting you and it's raining outside. And, happiness and distress. But you've got to learn to tolerate them. You've got to tolerate them through all situations, good and bad. How can we tolerate them? Is by not being attached to those emotions. Is by realizing that we're beyond the material happiness and distress. There's spiritual emotion, and that's really what we want to focus on. And so there's a guide to that. There's a guide to do that in the Vedic teachings, especially Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is such a good text for understanding the world around us a little bit better. Anyone, no matter your background, your religious, spiritual, scientific, philosophical, whatever your background, if you read Bhagavad Gita with an open mind, and you'll see that it's not just a believe this, believe that, that there's actually a science there. When you try and view the world with that worldview, through the perspective of Bhagavad Gita, a lot of things make a lot more sense, and it starts to help us understand a little more of the why. Because in general, say material science in general, useful for a lot of things, but it only explains the how, but it doesn't explain the deeper why. Why does anything happen? Vedic text, it contains those things. It's like a guide to life, it really is like a guide to life. Just like with a TV, or let's take the Vastu, they're building the houses there. You need a guide to build those houses. You can't just build the houses. Well, you can, but they might not turn out very good. But if you take the knowledge of those who've come before, especially those who made the original house, let's say, then sure, you might improvise a little bit on things, but in general, you follow that guide and you're going to get a pretty pucker house. Well, similar in this world we live in. There's guides to living. We know that, even just, on a more mundane platform, there's guides to living. The self-help guides are like one of the best-selling books, right? All these different books is how do I make my marriage a success? How do I become a millionaire? There's guides to all these things, and similarly there's a guide to our emotional life, a guide to our internal life, a guide to being happy, a guide to being tolerant through happiness and distress. These things exist if we care to look for them, but often we're a bit more worried when we're dealing with more subtle aspects of our life, when we're dealing with things that are closer to the soul, because Bhagavad Gita also explains that there's these gross elements, these gross material elements, but above those things are the mind, our intelligence, and those things until you get to the soul, which is obviously, the essence, the core, the foundation of it all, and the most important thing really, no soul, no life. I can only speak from my own experience. I can't apply it to everyone. Who can, but for me, I found Bhagavad Gita just an eye-opener on life, just explains so many things that I have to recommend reading it, and not be afraid to explore, at least explore and experiment with more subtle aspects of ourselves, like the psychological, people, a lot of people are scared to see a psychologist or like that, psychiatrist, because, he might understand things about me that I just don't want to know. But it's worth exploring, just for the experience. I mean, let's say you just live once. Let's say there's only one life. Don't you want to understand why you experience the things you experience? why you go through the different emotional roller coasters you go through, is something worth exploring.